Hello, welcome. I'm Rosa Vissers, and today I'm offering a yoga class movement for newish parents or anyone who wants to move slowly and with extra care and attention for the shoulders, chest, upper back and neck area, although we'll be visiting the whole body today. And if you know that you'd like some extra cushion for your knees, make sure you have a blanket or a towel nearby. If you want a little bit of extra height, and I do recommend that for the last little bit when we'll be sitting, maybe have a bolster, or again, a folded up blanket will do just fine. And you don't need a mat. You can do this on the floor, on a rug, carpet, anything that allows you to move with as much ease as possible and with anything that you have on hand. We'll be spending a lot of time low to the ground, and then we'll make our way up to standing for just a few things, and then we'll make our way back down. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. And I forgot one thing. If you've recently given birth, make sure that you have checked in with your care provider that it's okay for you to start to bring in some bigger movements again. Okay, so we'll start resting on our back, or you can rest on your side for this first thing. We'll be checking in with ourselves, so making sure that whatever shape you find yourself in allows you to really rest and give your weight into the ground. So if you notice that you want a little bit of support for your head, you can bring a pillow and let your head rest there. If that doesn't feel good, of course, you can leave that out. And begin by allowing your eyes to look around and scan your environment a little bit. You may roll your head side to side, noticing the sounds that are in the room with you, maybe noticing the people that are with you. Maybe your child is with you, your children. So allowing yourself to be aware of what's there, not just your own energy level, but also what's in the space with you. And then letting that be there, and then choosing to draw most of your attention, most of your awareness inwards towards yourself. And you can have your hands on your belly like I have. You can have your arms resting out to the side or in a T shape. And then see if whatever part of you that's touching the ground can get a little heavier. Invite the weight to really drop down into the ground towards the earth. Let the earth support you and hold your weight. If you find that you've chosen a shape and now you want to switch, of course you always can. You're never stuck anywhere. All of this is an invitation. Allowing the ground to be there to receive your weight. And then see if you can also invite the breath in, and without trying to change anything about the breath, but just thinking of giving it space, noticing the movement your body makes as you breathe in and out. And it can help to bring your hands to your belly for this, or to have a hand on your chest. You might feel your beautiful heart beating. And you are here. You made it. some time for yourself. Really let this be nourishing for you. And however long you're able to participate is perfect. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and release your hands if they were on your belly or your chest, and if you were on your side, please make your way onto your back. If your knees aren't already bent, you can bend them now. And I like to scooch to the edge of my mat for this because it will be a little bit easier to slide my legs on the wood floor rather than on my yoga mat. So I'm inchworming my way down. And we'll start by connecting with our center, the deep abdominal muscles that really help support our back and our integrity through the center of our body. And I invite you to bend your knees, bring the bottoms of your feet, the soles of your feet to the ground. And legs can be right in line with your hip joints. They don't have to be super narrow. Make sure that there's a little bit of space between your legs. And I like to begin with bringing my fingertips right to the front of my hip bones. And as I breathe in, I imagine that my belly fills like a balloon. And then as I breathe out, I think of drawing my hip points closer together, even though the bones don't necessarily move, as a way to wake up sensation in this area and to notice that the muscles turn on when I breathe out and think of drawing the hip points together, cinching like a belt, knitting together. And then release on the breath in. Let your belly be soft, and then drawing the navel down to the ground, knitting the muscles together, thinking of drawing the hip points together. And if this is just your speed for today, stay with this. So breathing with a little bit more intention on the exhalation. If you'd like to try some heel slides, you can start to slide one heel down the floor, trying to keep your hips and your pelvis stable. As you do that, your knee might not come all the way straight. And then drawing the heel back in towards your torso. And switching to the other side. So we'll need that core stability, those muscles knitting together to keep stability in your body, and then drawing the heel back up. Make sure you take breaths as you do this so you're not holding your breath. You can find this stability through the body while still breathing. I like to play with breathing in as I lengthen my leg and move my heel away, and breathe out as I bring the heel back in. But you may find that another breath pattern is more supportive for you. Do one more set on each side, noticing if you start to tense a lot in your shoulders. I always have a tendency to do that. I'll have to let that go again. And then when you feel complete, when you're ready, release and let your knees rock side to side, like windshield wipers. You might enjoy a little bit of a quicker pace, like I'm doing, or you might want to go very slow. And I invite you to find a range of motion that is honoring, respectful of where you are today. So your knees may travel from side to side. One leg might touch the ground and then the other leg on the other side. Or you might be working really with finding this stability and the back of their low back and our pelvis. And letting whatever shape these windshield wipers have taken get smaller and smaller. And then roll on over to one side. And this is where you may want to have a pillow under your head. You may want to rest on your arm, or you may bring your head into your hand. See if you can line up your shoulders with your hips and your heels here. And then lengthen the top leg out long. And I like to have my top arm in front of me, spreading my fingers, giving a little press. And I'm really thinking of making a long swoop, one brush stroke from the top of my head through my heel, everything in one line. And then lift your leg up and then lower it down. So now we're waking up our the muscles along the outside of our leg, even along the inside if you imagine that you're working against some resistance as you're coming down. So our ab and adductors. And we need the glute muscles to support us as we are doing a lot of lifting and bending over, picking up our little ones. And again, bring the breath to this. So allow yourself to breathe, to support you, to bring oxygen into your body. Let's do one more. And then shake out the leg. Release and stack your knees on top of one another, stack your hips on top of one another. And for this, you may want to bring your legs a little bit closer towards you so that there's a little bit more of a crease in your hip joint and a little bit more of a crease in your knees. And bring your bottom arm out in front. And you can rest your head on the ground, or again, if the pillow feels more appropriate for you, do that. And really try to make your legs strong, like a strong foundation. So zip them together so the legs won't slide and move along one another for this next little bit. And we're gonna focus on the upper body by sliding the top hand along the inside of our bottom arm, across our chest, all the way till our fingertips reach our shoulder. We may look over our back shoulder. The elbow is pointing backwards to behind us. And then folding back. And I noticed that I let my top leg slide a little bit. So it really, if that happens to you, just do your best to keep your knees in line. So the legs are actually doing quite a bit of work, so that the rotation is happening through your upper back rather than in the low back. So you may have to move quite slowly so that you can pay attention to what's happening. You might move a little bit quicker. I like to breathe in as I sweep across and spiral and look back, and breathe out as I unwind. Do one more just like this. Release. Roll onto your back and give yourself a little bit of a hug. Bring your knees into the chest. Maybe you want to bring your forehead towards your knees, creating a small shape. You can move your knees away from you and towards you, giving yourself a little low back massage. Drawing circles on the ceiling with your knees. Lots of options here. And I'm gonna switch my orientation, but you can stay where you are. This is just so that I don't have my back to the camera, because we have the other side to do. So go ahead and switcheroo to roll over to your other side, and then we'll start again with some outer hip leg strengthening. Do your best to line up your hips with your shoulders and head and heels. A bit of a bend in the knees. And then go ahead and lengthen your top leg. I didn't say this on the first side, but see if you can allow your hip points to move, to look straight ahead like you have headlights. So even here, we're trying to not roll open, and our kneecaps are also pointing straight ahead. So there's no external rotation happening here, okay? And go ahead and start lifting and lowering the leg. You may find it on this side, it's a little different experience. We all have asymmetry in our bodies. Make sure you bring the breath as you do this movement. You might notice some heat, sensation of warmth along the leg. Play around with where you can do the work and where you can rest. Maybe your jaw is trying to participate, doesn't need to, or your shoulders are getting tense. Do one more. Shake it out. Bend your knees a little bit more. Stacking your hips and knees on top of one another. Lengthen out your bottom arm, palm to palm. And you know what's next. So on this side, again, trying to keep the knees and hips stacked as you rotate through the upper back. Fingertips come to the shoulder, elbow points back. If you want to do this with your eyes closed, of course you can. If you want to look around, take your eyes on a little ride, looking at the ceiling and the sky behind you. Whatever allows you to be present with the movement, with yourself. Do 2, maybe 3 more. Is this side different? Maybe there's less rotation, maybe more. When you feel complete, go ahead and let that go. Roll back onto your back and take another hug, hugging your knees into the chest. When you feel ready, roll onto one side. Use your hands to push yourself up. And come onto your hands and your knees, placing your hands underneath the shoulders or a little bit ahead of the shoulders, and your knees underneath the hips. If your wrists are feeling super tender, and this can happen from holding the baby a lot, the wrist can feel a little, that they need a little break. You can bring your hands to, or your forearms to a bolster. If you have blocks, you can rest them on blocks or a stack of pillows. Start to sway your weight side to side or wagging your tail right to left. Bring a little bit of seaweed movement into the spine, a little sloshing, inviting some watery quality of movement. If this feels really good, stay here, or you can move on to the next invitation. Cat-cow, rounding the spine up to the ceiling, letting the tail drop, letting the head hang heavy. And then moving the spine in the opposite way, letting our tail reach up to the ceiling, widening through the chest, gaze lifts up slightly. And then moving between those two shapes. Doming the back, stretching the muscles, the skin of the back even. And then lengthening through the front, letting our belly hang and be long. Scooping everything up, up, up to the sky. Letting the belly be long, arching. A little bit of a bend through the elbows here. Buoyancy. And if this is serving you, you can stay with this a little bit longer, or join me for this next bit where we try to find some sticky spots in the shoulders. Turn your right palm up to the ceiling and see if you can place the whole back of the hand on the ground. So still on our knees, and then from here we are lining up our hand with our elbow and with our shoulder, more or less. We'll place our other palm on top of the palm, so we're palm to palm again, and move our hips back and away. Head will come in line with the biceps until you find a good spot to be. For me, it means I'm not going all the way back with my hips. I'm trying to keep the back of my hand on the mat. So as soon as I notice it wants to peel off, I know that I can stop there and breathe. Depending on where you're at, you may feel this in a lot of different places. You may feel this in your wrist, along the back, along the arm or shoulder. One more breath in and out, and come on forward, and we'll switch to the other side. So turning the other palm up, placing the other palm on top. Really wanting to keep the back of the hand on the mat as much as possible, or the floor or your blanket, as you shift your hips back towards your heels. And if it helps to have a little bit of support, you can bring a bolster or some pillows in between, so you have a little bit of a shelf to rest on. Allow your breath to move towards the back of your rib basket, up and down along the spine. And letting that go and release, coming back onto all fours or onto your forearms, and taking a second to notice if you feel any difference after doing some of these movements. I'll take my bolster away. You can use your hand for this. Bring your right leg, grab a hold of the your hamstring if you want to use your hand. Bring your right leg in front of you, aligning your knee with the center of your foot, so the second and third toe. Now rotate around so you can see. And you can have your hands on blocks if you have them. You can walk your hands up to your front thigh. We'll start with a little rock. Moving your hips forward and back. And start small. Your toes can be pointed back or be tucked underneath. Meaning your back toes. That would be quite advanced to tuck your front toes. I don't even know if that's possible. So rocking forward and back. And the invitation's always there to increase the range so you can come forward a little bit more, go back a little bit further. Maybe you want to go back so far that your front toes peel off the floor and your knee straightens more or less. And for that, you may want to bring your hands to the floor. And notice that your spine can move doing these motions. So you can round, arch, and we'll switch sides, and in between you can choose to visit either child's pose or wisdom pose, bringing your big toes together, knees slightly apart, moving your hips back. You can rest on your forehead on your forearms, have your arms out long, or you can come to a downward facing dog, lifting your hips up to the sky, pedaling your feet. There's a lot of crackling and popping happening in my ankle joints. We're going to switch sides. So coming back onto hands and knees, taking our left foot in front this time. Shifting your hips forward and back. Always welcome to have padding under your back knee. You can be more upright. You can keep your hands on the floor. Giving you options so that you can really make the practice yours. Allowing your breath to be there to support your movement. Breathing out fully before you breathe in. Maybe the side again needs a slight variation. Or maybe you're simply curious about trying something new on the second side. We're going to make our way up to standing in just a moment. So decide for yourself if you want to come through a downward facing dog before coming to a stand, or if you want to roll up directly by coming to a standing forward fold immediately. So I'm gonna demonstrate coming to a standing forward fold, but if you want to come to a downward facing dog first, go ahead and do that now. Stepping your back leg to meet your front leg, bringing your forearms to your thighs. You're in this catcher position, allowing your head to hang. If you're in downward facing dog, Start to walk your feet towards your hands or hop to the top of your mat. And from here, either rolling up through the spine, one vertebra stacking on top of the other, or coming up through a flat back, your choice. And I'm gonna adjust my camera setting. Take your time to roll through the back or rising up through a flat back. So we all meet standing. Feet can be underneath the hips or a little bit wider, shoulder width apart. Find again a little bend through your knees so you're not locking when your legs can be straight. But allow yourself to have some softness through the legs. Reach your hands out to the side, breathe in. And as you breathe out, bring your palms together in front of your chest. You can allow your weight to shift side to side or be still through the legs. Again, drop your hands and arms down. Inhale, arms to the side. Exhale, hands together in front of your heart. Repeat that 2 more times on your own tempo. You can choose to reach your arms all the way up overhead and draw a line down to center. Imagine you're doing this movement with a big group of people, all syncing up the movement and the breath. And pause, hands in front of your heart. Feel the floor underneath your feet. Maybe sink a little bit of weight into your heels. Move a little bit more into your back space. Release your hands by your side. Lift your shoulders up towards your ears. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then widen the shoulders out to the sides. Lengthen through the back of the neck by letting your chin drop, even if it's like a centimeter, millimeter. Long back of the neck. Soft through the front body, wide through the back body. Start to shift your weight into one side, bending the knee that you're pouring your weight in, and then transfer the weight to the other side, bending the other knee. Think of your hips moving side to side. Maybe there's a little up and over motion through the hips. You can let your feet participate, kneading the floor. You can't see my feet, but you can see my hands. Imagine my feet are doing this kind of kneading like a cat through the floor. Finding that connection again to the earth like we did at the beginning of class. Now if you like, you can add a little bit of a spiral. Now that we're standing, so we worked on a little bit of a spiral through our chest earlier on the ground. You can invite that back in. And then let your arms move as well. Your arms are moving in response to the spine. And as I'm talking, I'm getting my movement a little bit mixed up. So follow your own movement impulse. You may want to twist towards the bent leg, You may want to twist away from the bent leg. And now send a little bit more energy into your fingertips. Imagine you have really long, beautiful sleeves on a beautiful coat, and it goes flying through the air. Elbows can stay soft as you wrap your arms around and unwrap. Energy out all the way through the fingertips, allowing your head, neck, your eyes to participate. We'll do this for just a couple more seconds. Three, two, and one. And let your body slowly unwind itself. Sometimes it gets really complicated talking and moving at the same time, even after all these years. Squeeze your hands into fists like you're squeezing a citrus fruit. Squeeze, release. Now bring your hands to your face. And just give yourself a little gentle touch, squeeze. Top of the head. Just maybe communicating to yourself, I am here. Holding yourself. And then start to squeeze or pat or brush down one arm. And back up. Along the chest. And the other arm. Find something that feels supportive, that feels good. Bringing some information, some touch to the largest organ of the body. Rubbing your belly. Low back, a little bit of pressure there. And we'll make our way back down to a seat. Squeezing down the legs, bending through the knees. Down, down through the legs until you get to your feet, and then make your way to a seat on your mat. And I'm adjusting the camera again. A little bit of height underneath your hips. Highly recommend that your hips are a little bit higher than your knees. And also sit with your legs out long, like this. Lots of options. You can come to a chair as well if sitting on the floor is not respectful for your body. And once you have settled and arrived, I invite you to start circling your shoulders. You can begin by lifting your shoulders up and then letting them settle back down, or you can circle right away. Maybe as the shoulders move along the back, giving your shoulder blades, the back muscles a little extra squeeze. Using your muscles, a little squeeze there down the back. And reverse the circle. Letting your shoulders settle. If you like to do a little neck stretch here, you can let one ear melt towards the shoulder. You can have a little bit of support by holding on to the side of your face so that there's not too much weight right away on the muscles of your neck. Want to move very gently with the neck muscles and take it easy. A little goes a long way. If you want to draw little circles with your chin, you will find that that moves the sensation around quite a bit. You can let your head turn down all the way and then let your head turn up. Let this be an exploration. Letting your chin fall towards this soft part of your throat, letting your head roll through the center and then over to the other side. And this side might feel quite different. In my case, I find that I have more tightness on this side. And I feel the sensation go all the way into my ear and jaw. You can do the same thing that you did on the first side. You may explore some different things. You can reach your opposite hand away and move your hand up and down like a slow little wave. Move your arm forward and back. Lots of choices, lots of ways to make this yours. You started holding the breath. Remind yourself to keep breathing in and out. The breath is the magic ingredient for all of this. We want to make sure we include it in the recipe, and letting our head roll forward again. You may feel a sensation down the back of the neck onto your upper back. And on your next breath in, lift your head back up, stack it on top of the round shape of your ribs over your hips. Balancing these spheres on top of one another dynamically, so there's always movement happening, always little adjustments. If you're ready to rest by laying down on your side or your belly or your back, go ahead and find a comfy spot on the floor. If you want to do a little bit more breathing sitting up, we'll do that for a minute or so. You can bring your hands to your ribs, or you can let your hands rest and imagine that your hands are there. And for this next 4 or 5 breaths, I invite you to send your breath into the sides. And notice the movement of the ribs moving kind of like a hinge. Your eyes can be closed, or you can gaze at a spot in front of you. Sending your breath into the side ribs. Noticing all this movement that's happening as the breath comes in and out. Take 1 or 2 more rounds of breath. this feels really good and you want to explore this longer, of course you can. Otherwise, find a position, shape that is restful, that might be seated. You can rest on your side, on your back, on your belly. You can even sit against the wall. I'm going to remain seated so that you can hear my voice. And as you arrive and settle in, come back to your connection to the ground, to the earth. Allow there to be support for your body. And do a quick little scan of where you may be holding tension. For some of us, we might be holding tension in the shoulders or hips, or even our feet or hands. And letting yourself integrate. Let your body integrate the information without any effort on your part, simply by resting and trusting. You can stay here for as long as you like. Thank you very much for practicing with me today. I hope it serves you, your family. Very grateful for this opportunity to share some tools that I turn to over and over again. My 17-month-old just woke up, so it's perfect timing.